About the misleading statement that was issued by UN, United Nations Organization's resident coordinator in Sri Lanka, Mrs. Hannah Singer Hamdy, on the topic restrictions shouldn't, and it doesn't say mustn't, shouldn't go beyond legitimate protection of public health. Well, there's a difference between shouldn't and mustn't. Shouldn't means it gives the option to the government to decide. Mustn't means definitely requesting a government to do it. But here it shouldn't. That means in English, grammar, it's not a very serious statement. Government should decide on its own. So now the problem is, according to her statement, when we analyze from an international law point of view, legitimate. It's difficult to accept this statement in any case. And I like to ask United Nations resident coordinator in Sri Lanka, Ms. Hannah Singer Hamdy, where to draw the line. To when you do something, you have to draw the line. No? This ends there, the other part starts here. So when it comes to COVID-19 and general public getting into protest on the road on the pretext of various freedoms with the United Nations promote here. On a shouldn't basis and not a mustn't basis also, like the Norwegians from a long distance try to control, had a fake peace process here without committing to the cause of Sri Lanka to resolve the peace and establish peace issue. The Norwegians, Erik Solheim, from a distant, try to mess, and ultimately it evolved into a huge war and a genocide even in Molawaikal. Now, similarly, the US government tried to use the UN monitoring mission and also the internet and try to resolve Sri Lanka's ethnic issues. Now, how to do that? Because rather than committing, commitment to gets into the system and doing it, by supporting with the Federal Reserve Bank branch here to inflow of US dollars. Without such things from America through remote control mechanisms, or the United Nations monitoring mission in Geneva, nobody can solve this problem. It may evolve into another disaster. Now here, it can be more like not only a Molawaikal type disaster, but a political, economic, social, technological, legal disaster. If UN and the Geneva-based United Nations monitoring mission, after nearly 3 million US dollar funds to carry out this mission on Sri Lanka during these days, and also the US government try to use internet and then remote control methods of patch making to solve this problem will not help. It will evolve into a more dangerous situation, political, economic, social, technological, legal, etc., and international also, due to this way of messing up. Like similar to the Norwegian Sri Lanka monitoring mission using Mr. Erik Solheim, without committing to the issue, try to have a distance approach and solve the problem, and it ultimately ended in a Molawaikal genocide to the Sri Lankan Tamils. Now here it would affect another issue, political, economic, social, technological, legal problem for all Sri Lankans, not only the last time Sri Lankan Tamil people, but here Sri Lankan Muslims, Sri Lankan Sinhalese, everybody. So here that's why I want to know from the United Nations resident coordinator in Sri Lanka, Ms. Hannah Singer Hamdy, as to how to draw the line between public health and legitimate, public, when it comes to this issue, how to draw the line between legitimate protection and health protection. Now, when you do something, we have to clearly say, we have to draw the line, right? When you are living in your house, you have drawn a line around your house border, right? That means the land that belongs to you and land that belongs to the others or the public authorities on the roads. So there you have a line, the border line. But here, she doesn't say where to draw the line between this legal protection, legitimate protection, which she talks about, and health protection. Legal protection is in terms of parliamentary made laws of Sri Lanka, right? And then the health protection is also with regard to the parliament made laws of Sri Lanka. So now perhaps she may say influencing using international laws here, but still how to draw the line to separate these two when there's a tiny virus which you cannot even see to the eye, spreading. And then legitimate protection is just a parliament made law, and the health protection is more about the life, human life, and saving the human lives in Sri Lanka. So if public protests go allowed and on the pretext of freedom, which is more important when it comes to the human rights? Is it the right to life or the human right of freedom of expression, which is more or freedom right of gathering, freedom right of expression, free expression? Is it more important? Are they more important, or is the right to life which is more important here? Obviously, it is the right to life. But here, the general public cannot protect their lives because this is a tiny virus nobody can see even from their eyes. That is why the government of Sri Lanka, upon my advice, have given the priority to private, right to life, and to stop the protests during this pandemic, because you don't know from where the virus will come and damage and kill them. That is the reason. So, because still we don't know how it spread, and time to time it emerged. Initially, we have seen it damage all the countries that voted against Sri Lanka at the United Nations, the Human Rights Council in March this year. All the countries, the Western Christian countries, lost majority of the 4 million plus 40 lakhs plus people's lives, and China lost less, because rather we can say it supported Sri Lanka and it lost less human lives. India, that went against Sri Lanka during the 30-year war, lost more than 400,000 people during this pandemic. So you can see a correlation. All the countries that supported Sri Lanka's destruction during the last 30 years, they suffered and they lost nearly 4 million people during the pandemic, whereas Sri Lanka's suffering is only about 3,000, and China's loss is also lost. India, Europe, and America, which promoted the liberation tigers of Tamil Nadu, suffers more than 4 million losses of human life. So without knowing how this happened, so this happened because of the the nature's law of karma. According to the rights and the wrongs, goods and the bads, and the wrongs intentions, and the good intentions, and the right intentions and the bad intentions. Those who carried out, the individuals, organizations, government departments, government organizations, and the countries would have to face the consequence. They have to be responsible for their decisions. After all, during this, UN, UK, US led, accountability and responsibility mechanism process. This is how the accountability responsibility happens due to the nature's, law of karma. So now under those circumstances, we cannot allow the, Sri Lankan people to get into the roads and protest and die, because right to life is more important priority in the human rights of the internationally, and that is the more important thing than right to, freedom of expression, or right to have legitimate assembly during this pandemic period. So I kindly request the UN Resident Coordinator Sri Lanka, Mrs. Hannah Singer, not to talk, politically biased statements. These earlier Miss Sakuntala from the former Sri Lanka, from the Sri Lanka's, Commission of Human Rights, she also issued wrongful statements to mislead President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and to frighten him, scare him, and that led to another huge crisis. So, not to interfere in the legal matters, because the United Nations officials in Colombo, like Ms. Hannah Hamdy, are not elected, by the sovereign mandate, political mandate of the democratic Sri Lanka. Democratic Sri Lanka's leaders, even during the United Nations Monetary Mission, more prominently, are elected by the people's mandate. Nearly 69,000 lakhs mandate to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and 2/3 mandate to the parliament. So let them govern the country the way they prefer, because it's a politically democratic mandate. UN cannot override such democratic sovereign people's mandate through bureaucrats like this type of women in Colombo. Right? Because it's different to, other countries. Sri Lanka had been the Asia's oldest democracy, not like Indonesia and East Timor here, because Sri Lanka is the oldest democracy in Asia. Right? So it's stable, not like Indonesia from time to time it changes, not like Pakistan where time to time the democracy changes to military government. We have been a democratic country and our government leaders still are elected by the people's democratic mandate, and they have the sovereign right to decide everything. Even during the United Monetary Mission, according to the UN Charter itself, UN cannot intervene in the sovereign people's mandate to its democratic leaders.